Hello, welcome to Archive West Texas, program dedicated to preserving and exploring the stories, people, and institutions that shape our region. I'm your host, Gordon Wilkerson, joined by our producer, as always, Thomas Dye, the man that makes this show happen. We're pleased today to have Jarrett Atkinson, City Manager of the City of Lubbock, with us today. Jarrett's here to help us better understand how our city functions and why that matters. Today's conversation draws heavily from a program that I was privileged to complete earlier this year called Lubbock 101 that Jarrett leads. It's an education program for people interested that explains how the city works, and it gave me a profound respect and better understanding of how complex Jarrett's job is, and really appreciate you, Jarrett, taking time to share with our listeners today. Thanks for coming in.
Well, Gordon, thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and I really look forward to our visit today. Thanks for the plug on Lubbock 101. Truly one of my favorite things all year.
Let's start a little bit with talking about your background. You know, a lot of guys grow up wanting to be firemen or policemen or football players or baseball players. Where'd you grow up, and what was it about your upbringing that led you to a career in city government?
Well, I'm a Texas Panhandle boy, so I am from Pampa, Texas. Spent most of my time, as a child growing up in Amarillo, graduate of Amarillo High School, for those that want to, throw rocks or anything at that. I don't know that I can say there was a specific moment, at least when I was a child, that I thought public service was where I wanted to go. I was really, for a long time, more interested in the public safety aspect, and actually what my undergraduate degree is.
Where'd you go to school?
Sam Houston State is my undergrad, and then came back up here, went to Texas Tech to get my master's in public administration. And if I had to say when did I know this is what I wanted to do, it was in the final semester of graduate school. Back then you had to serve an internship in order to be able to sit for your comprehensive exams and all that stuff. I went to work for the city council, city manager's office for the city of Lubbock. And then 20 years later was fortunate to come back and do it. But being around certainly all of the council members, the city manager, the deputy, all of that crew, was fortunate enough they kept assigning me into odd projects. I actually went out and counted dumpsters at one point as a graduate intern. But much as you said from your experience in 101, man, it just really hit me. This is a career in public service that will literally touch everybody's life every day, whether they know it or not. And I want to do that.
One of the biggest takeaways that I had from the program was how much that all of us take for granted every day. You count on the power being there when you turn on your lights in the morning. You count on the water running when you turn on your faucet. You count on the streets being safe. You count on fire protection. You count on the trash being picked up, and none of that happens by osmosis. There's a lot of moving parts to that.
It's over 2,000 people every day that make that happen. I like to tell our new employees when I meet with them for their orientation that you are going to be a part of a team that touches everybody, everywhere, every day, whether they know it or not. And we're really doing our best job when they don't know it, when they don't think about it. The water ran, the commode flushed. That had to go somewhere.
That's all good.
Our team made that happen.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Lubbock's form of government, the council manager system, and how that differs maybe from other municipalities. It's a fairly common structure in Texas, but just talk our listeners through that. I remember having that discussion in 7th grade civics, but it's been a while.
Yes. So Lubbock is a council manager form of government. So I'm talking about the city of Lubbock. The alternative form of government in Texas is generally called a strong mayor form of government. So council manager in Texas is far and away the most common, and in fact, probably the one shining example that didn't go to council manager would be the city of Houston. Strong mayor. Basically, when that mayor gets elected, comes in new, then you see all of the top rows of your organizational chart are replaced. Council manager was designed more to really build people that truly they were doing what they were trained, educated, and experienced in doing. It was designed to build continuity, and it really was designed to build a tool such that once your elected body, our city council, when they set a policy goal, they've got the people under them, the capability under them to deliver that for our citizens.
What does the city manager do day to day?
I tried to practice this one question, maybe two questions on here, but what do we do day to day? Obviously, number one, I am working to be sure that myself, our teams, are being very responsive to our citizens. Number two, that we're doing the same for our city council. The city council is the link between what me and my team does and what our citizens want, expect, and need from us. So those two. And then number three, it's really, we have taken our policy goals and directives from the council, and I need to be sure those happen.
What misconceptions do you think citizens sometimes have about city government?
We could do an entire show on that. And it's a great question. I love answering this question. So what are some common misconceptions? Lubbock's a little unique in that quite a few of what we think are our major city streets are actually state highways. So 4th Street, all the way through town, that is a farm to market road. That's on the state highway system. 19th Street, probably the most common call I get. When is the city going to finish that construction? We're not. It's not our construction. 19th is a state highway. So is Avenue Q. So
wasn't Avenue Q just given to the city, or
it will be?
Will be.
Avenue Q and 19th both. When all the construction is done and the work has been accepted, those will become city streets. People ask a lot, well, why would you do that? You're going to take over the maintenance. We will. We get the local control, though, of things as simple as where can a driveway be built? What are the speed limits? How are we going to plan the maintenance? When it snows or we get ice, who's going to take care of it? I think it's important, though, for all of us to realize this is not a new concept. Slide Road is a state highway, or rather was. So today, Slide from the South Loop up north of Erskine has been turned over to the city. We've done that. We know how to do this, and we know ultimately it benefits the community. So that's what we're doing. Other big misconceptions: we're not the county government, we're not state government, we're not the federal government. Not commonly, but several times a year I'll get a phone call. Somebody's upset, maybe with decisions that say Lubbock Independent School District has been forced to make with closing schools. And how dare my mayor do that, or my city council do that? Well, we don't. That is a separate entity, separate form, has their own elected officials. So it's things like that.
We're visiting today with Lubbock City Manager Jarrett Atkinson. Take a quick break. I want to remind our listeners that if you have a suggestion for a future guest on Archive West Texas, please email us. We're at info@classical1057.org. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Archive West Texas. We're continuing our conversation today with Lubbock City Manager Jarrett Atkinson. Jarrett, one thing that a lot of people don't realize about Lubbock is that in terms of other communities within Texas, it's a relatively new community. Really just over 100 years old. You have communities downstate that are probably closer to 200 years old. Talk with us a little bit about the growth the city's seen, say, from the 1950s to today, just a little bit of comparison and contrasting infrastructure and population between that time and today.
Sure, and that's a good point. The late 1950s were boom time in Lubbock, Texas. In fact, a lot of the things that you see and enjoy today really started 1957, 1958. So we'll draw a couple of comparisons. In 1957, the city limits were 30 and a half square miles, 30 and a half. In 2024, so a year ago, we were 144 and a half square miles. Massive, massive expansion. 1957, over the course of that year, again, this was a banner year, we did 1,023 building permits. Compare that to 2024, we did over 16,000. As it was then, still today, water became a big issue, huge issue. So in 57, the city purchased its first major set of water rights, 75,000 acres approximately. We still have them today, we still use them today. But by 2024, through a lot of different projects the city undertook, we had just under 250,000 acres of water rights, plus lakes of our own. 306 miles of streets in the 50s to 1,300 miles in 2024. One that might surprise some people. In 57, we landfilled 60 tons of garbage. Last year, we landfilled 341,000 tons of garbage. Now, not all of that comes from Lubbock. We run a regional landfill, but the vast majority of it. And I kind of put this a different way that sometimes helps us visualize it. 341,000 tons is just unimaginable. It's the equivalent of burying 3 United States Navy aircraft carriers each year. 3 carriers. Yeah. I said that we enjoy things today that we started in the 50s. Obviously, the water's a big deal. 1957 is when they broke ground on Loop 289. Now we have it finished, and we have broken ground and are under construction on Loop 88. We're the only city in West Texas with a complete, closed, limited access, high-speed loop. And we're building our second one. So investments in transportation have just been huge, huge. I'll give you 2 more real quick on this. In 57, we had 138 firefighters. In 2024, we had 430 firefighters. We processed, in 1957, we processed 8.3 million gallons of sewage. So we talked about if you use the water, we're going to take it back. We did. From 8.3 million in 1957, that peaked at 7 billion with a B in 2024.
It's a staggering growth pattern and a lot to keep up with.
Staggering.
Where does our revenue come from?
Good question. So in round numbers, the city's budget for the year that we're in right now, in round numbers, our budget's just a little over $940 million. That's huge, nearly $1 billion. But we talk about a misperception or a misconception. It's what is that? What is a budget? Well, it is not a single bucket that has $940 million in it, and the city council doles a little of it to the street, to the park, to the trash, to the water, doesn't work that way. The budget's actually divided, in our case, into what are called funds. The one that gets all the attention is the general fund, and that's where police, fire, streets, parks, libraries, where all of that stuff is. But any of our operations that typically have a charge that goes with them, those are enterprise funds. And that just means legally they have to operate and stand on their own. So water and wastewater are your 2 easy examples of that. They send you a bill every month, and hopefully you pay the bill, and that covers the cost of doing that. So the revenue from the general fund, the number one source is actually sales tax. It is not property tax. Number one, sales tax. Expect that we'll end this year with about $100 million in sales tax collections. So property tax is number 2. Budget for this year, and it happens, you'll hit it, is about $89.3 million in property tax. Now, one of the things I like to remind people, if I took every single dollar from the property tax and applied it to the police department only, it would not fund the police department. The police department's about a $94 million a year operation. Both of those are sources that obviously, that's dollars that the city took from our residents to do something on their behalf, and nobody likes that. But that's how it works, and property tax is not number 1, it's number 2.
How does the budgeting process work?
Long, confusing, seems to last most of the year, all those fun things. We get into gear on the New Year's budget right as we finish the audit from the prior. So we finish the audits in February. We're required to take it to council, and we do. And then our teams go to work. We've got a department that's all they do, financial planning and analysis. As we roll into March, and certainly by April, I'm involved quite heavily in it. The city's divided into approximately 50 functional operating units inside of that $940 million. From that period that starts in early April through the end of June, me and my team, we will meet in person with every one of those functional units at least twice. If they've got a capital budget, we do capital budgeting separately, one-time expense. And then, of course, all of them have an operating budget, so you do that. That carries us into July. In July now, I'm waiting on final numbers from outside entities that help us bring the general fund into balance, into close. We're actually doing that right now. And then the first week of August, we go to the council. Council will generally spend 4 workshops as we present and go through the budget. They ask questions, they suggest change, they bring in, we want to go this way or that way. And as we run through that process, that's where you have public hearings, public input, notices in the newspaper. If all stays on schedule, generally the second week of September, we will adopt a budget that'll start October 1st.
Thank you for explaining that process. We're visiting today with City Manager Jarrett Atkinson. Take another quick break. I do want to remind our listeners that all Archive West Texas episodes, including this show, are available on demand on our station app, also on our website at classical1057.org. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Archive West Texas. We're continuing our conversation today with Lubbock City Manager Jarrett Atkinson. Let's talk in this segment, Jarrett, a little bit about infrastructure and what the city delivers in terms of street infrastructure. How many miles of roadway did you say we had?
A little over 1,000 direct miles. But to accurately consider that, you've got to turn it into lane miles. So a 5-lane street, 1 mile long, that's 5 lane miles. We have 3,700 lane miles of street in the city of Lubbock. Now, if you're curious what that could do, if you left here and could drive straight towards Alaska, you'd end up within 100 miles of Anchorage if we stretched all those out end to end. 2,210 miles of water line that it takes to move throughout our city. And I'm a bit of a water geek, so I'll move down this path for just a moment. But in 2024, we treated and delivered just a little over 14 billion gallons of water to our customers in Lubbock. 14 billion is another one of those numbers that how in the world do you picture it? So most of us are going to be familiar, if not all, with AT&T Stadium, or the Dallas Cowboys plays. Largest fully enclosed stadium in the United States when it was built, probably still is today. 14 billion gallons of water would fill and drain AT&T Stadium 13 times. So if you tried to make a reservoir, it's 13x what the size of AT&T Stadium is. Now, a lot of water. We are using today less water per person than we were using in 2010. And in fact, Lubbock, especially being where we are, we actually have one of the lowest per person water use rates in the state. We'll generally be in the top 5, usually coming in around number 3 or number 4. So while we have just now peaked over the total we used in 2010, because we reduced how much each person used, and that's entirely consumer behavior, we're in a better shape for water today than we were even 15 years ago.
So is that community education? Is it the cost of water, or some of all of that? Or?
Some of all of that. So maybe not the most popular saying, but I will tell you that conservation of anything, any commodity, it always starts in the pocketbook. Always. So yes, the water rate structure, you can buy all the water you would like. It just progressively gets more expensive as you go. So that's helped. We've now had all of basically the low flow plumbing fixtures have been in circulation and required long enough now that that's made a difference. Whether that be the commodes or the shower heads or the dishwashers or whatever it may be. In fact, all the water use categories other than outdoor water use, which is your lawn, they've all come down.
What's the age of some of that infrastructure? Some of the water, some of the sewer. I mean, and what kind of challenges does the city have in maintaining that?
Big challenges. Probably the oldest existing water and wastewater infrastructure is really right here around where we sit today in downtown Lubbock. And there are still quite a few lines that were put in through the 1920s into the early 1930s. Now, what's the challenge? It's getting older. It's out of sight. It's out of mind. A lot of times we don't think about it. But how do we take care of it? So you take any of what we call a wet utility, primarily water and wastewater. Every year, every budget, there are millions of dollars set aside to come in and pull old stuff out and put new stuff in. The older lines have lasted a long, long time for us. They will not last forever. We do that based on condition. We do it based on problems. Or, and again, I'll go to downtown as our reference, when we have a big project coming, we're going to redo Broadway from Avenue Q to Avenue E. Step one of that will actually be replacing all the underground infrastructure before the road part of it. And we do that any and everywhere we go.
Yeah. No reason to fix the top side without fixing the underside.
Nothing more aggravating than to get that beautiful new road that our citizens paid for and a utility comes in and chops a ditch in it. Yeah. So we do not do that to ourselves.
All right. Talk a little bit about the current relationship between the city and LP&L. I know we can't take a deep dive on that, but the 30,000-foot overview for our listeners.
Interesting question. So Lubbock Power and Light is part and parcel of the city of Lubbock. They do not have a separate legal existence. And in fact, prior to 2004, they were an enterprise fund, just like water, wastewater, stormwater, all those other things. 2004, the voters approved a charter amendment, and what it did was change the oversight or the governance of Lubbock Power and Light. So Lubbock Power and Light has its own board. It's called the Electric Utility Board, or the EUB, 9 members, all appointed by the city council. That board then hires a director of electric utilities and a general counsel for electric utilities. They're all still city employees. The 200 and some odd people that work with them are all city employees. But for things that I would typically go to the council, the director of electric utilities will go to his electric utility board. Ultimately, though, whether it be a budget, it be a financing instrument, it be regulatory, that goes from their director to their board. Their board will ultimately work with it and decide to approve it in a certain form. Then it goes to the city council. So your city council still is responsible for all of it. They just have a subsidiary board that really gets to specialize and focus and work on what Lubbock Power and Light's doing. We really saw the power of that structure as we were making the switch to ERCOT.
And now the city, or through LP&L, owns the hardware, but consumers and citizens are buying their power from other providers of their choice.
Think of it maybe like the corner gas stations. Yes, Lubbock Power and Light owns all the infrastructure, the same infrastructure they owned the day before we went to ERCOT. What they don't own or provide anymore is the electricity. So for that gas station, they own all of their infrastructure. Where they choose to buy the fuel in the tank, and thus where you choose to fill your tank, that comes from the market. And that's how electricity works now.
Thank you for that clarification. What are the city's major infrastructure priorities right now?
Infrastructure drives everything, that we do. And unfortunately, a lot of infrastructure projects take a very long time. Usually they take longer in the permission phase than they do the building. So I'll throw 2 of them out that I think are great for us. First, and it's under construction as we sit, is what we call the West Lubbock Water Expansion. So the residential growth curve in Lubbock is still strong in the south and the southwest, but it is strongest going due west. So think of north of Wolforth and just running straight west. As we move out in that direction, we have to add what's called a pressure plane, a third pressure plane, to be able to serve that. All in, it's about a $70 million project that'll take 4 to 5 years of construction. So you'll have a new pump station, what we call a ground tank, and a new water tower eventually that will go up out there. That's one, and that really is filling both an existing need and setting us up for even more growth. The second one, and really maybe my favorite that we're doing, we are working on what we call Lake 7. So Lubbock already owns Lake Allen Henry. Lake Allen Henry is unique in that it stays full of water. In fact, it rarely goes below about 94% full. It works great. It's 45 miles away and it's downhill. Lake 7 will be built about 1/2 mile east of the East Loop off of 50th Street. It's going to be right here. It's going to be right in our backyard. Lake 7 is very unique, and it's a reuse lake. So obviously rainfall helps it, but it's not reliant upon rainfall to work. Number one, it's going to get a ton of water from all the money we've invested over the years in being able to drain our playas. So we own that water because the city moved that water. So you'll have all of your storm water, all of the reuse water coming out of our big wastewater plants. And it will never be perpetual. You always have evaporation and things like that. But it's about as close as you can get to that. It's a third the size of Lake Allen Henry physically, but it'll produce better than 1/2 of the water that Lake Allen Henry can produce. A lot of recreation, but a long-term project. So I talk about getting permission. We applied for the first, you have to have 2 permits to build a lake. We applied for the first permit in 2007, received it in 2024. I'm now in the process of permit number 2, and it'll be a little quicker. It'll be 3 to 4 years. Goal is to have that lake, the dam up, water in it, 2032.
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's a lot of
2
fun.
really big projects. We're out of time today, but I'm going to ask Jarrett to stay with us for our show next week. Want to thank you for listening today. Again, remind you that if you have a suggestion for a future guest on Archive West Texas, please email us at info@classical1057.org. Thanks for spending part of your day with us today. We'll be back next week with another edition of Archive West Texas.